So, after discussing about the residential status of an individual and then of a Hindu undivided family and also AOP and BOI, we move further to the next session. And in this session, we are going to discuss about the residential status of a company and then any other person also. And maybe we will move on further to the incidence of tax, how to compute that, and how to take the decision. So, for now, let us move on to understand the residential status of a company as per the section 6, para 3. The residential status of a company determines whether its worldwide income or only its Indian income will be taxable in India or not. Section 16, para 3 of the Income Tax Act 1961, it lays down the rules for determining whether a company is a resident or a non-resident in India during a particular previous year. So, as per this section, a company is said to be a resident in India in any previous year if it satisfies either of the following conditions. First, it is an Indian company, or second, it is a foreign company but its place of effective management, that is POEM, in short, place of effective management, we call it POEM, during that year is in India or not. Conversely, a company is said to be a non-resident if it is not an Indian company and its place of effective management, that is POEM, during that year is not in India. So let us just understand the various technical terminology that is used in these statements. So first we will understand the meaning of an Indian company. Under section 2 para 26 of the Income Tax Act, an Indian company means a company formed and registered under the Companies Act 2013 or any earlier Companies Act, and its registered office is situated in India. It has to be in India. If the registered office is situated elsewhere, then it's not an Indian company. Therefore, we can say that every Indian company is always a resident in India, irrespective of where its management or business of operations are carried on, because its registration has to be done as per the under the Companies Act 2013 or any other act earlier to that. So it will be an Indian company. Coming to the next terminology that is used is meaning of a foreign company. Foreign company, obviously, I think the word itself tells us that it's not registered in India and it is also controlled and management outside India. Some companies' residential status depends on where their place of effective management is situated, obviously, and on the basis of that we decide its residential status. Next is the place of effective management. POEM. What is this? If we go to the definition of POEM, as per the explanation 2, section 6, para 3, the place of effective management means a place where key management and commercial decisions that are necessary for the conduct of the business of any of an entity as a whole are made in substance. So, in order to understand this, I think we can say that the concept of POEM was introduced in order to prevent the tax avoidance by foreign companies that are effectively controlled from India, but they claim to be managed from abroad in order to escape the Indian taxation. So it aligns with international tax principles like those under OECD guidelines. The essence of POM is about, it is about, we can say POEM is about where the mind and management of the company actually lie, and not where the company is merely incorporated, or where its board formally meets. That's not important. So it focuses on the substance over form, we can say. That is where the real control and strategic decision making takes place, not just the legal formalities. How do we determine the POEM? There are certain guidelines as per CBDT Circular number 6 of 2017. That is, it helps us to identify the POEM of a foreign company. That is the Central Board of Direct Taxes, CBDT. It issued certain guiding principles through Circular number 6 oblique 2017, dated 24th January 2017. The determination of POEM depends on the fact that circumstances of each cases and involves a two-step approach. The first is the active business test, that is to determine whether the foreign company is engaged in active business outside India or not. So, a company, how to decide it is, we consider it to be, we consider any company to be engaged in active business outside India if the passive income such as dividends, interest, royalty, etc. is not more than 50% of its total income, and it is less than 50% of its total assets are located in India. So first point that we have to take care of, that its passive income such as dividend, interest, royalties, etc. it is not more than 50% of its total income, and less than 50% of its total assets should be located in India. Less than 50% of its total employees are also situated or resident in India, and the payroll expenses incurred on employees located on resident in India are less than 50% of royal payroll expenses. So if the company passes this test, then its POEM is presumed to be outside India unless key management decisions are actually taken in India. This was about the active business test. Now come to the step 2, that if the active business test fails, then what happens? So if the company does not satisfy the active business outside India test, then one must look deeper into where the key management and commercial decisions are actually made. So maybe we can take into consideration the factors like location of the board meeting, that is, where does the board of directors actually meet and make major decisions. Then role of Indian management, that is, they are the key management personnel or promoters in India. They are taking decisions on behalf of the company. Then third point is your delegation of powers, that is, has the real authority been delegated to person located in India, who effectively runs the company. This thing has to be kept in mind. Then where is the head office located? That is, where is the company's brain and head function, where do the senior management and control functions operate from. So if such strategic control or decision making is exercised in India, then we can decide that the POEM is in India and the company becomes a resident in India for that year, and for the purpose of calculation of income tax. That was about the company. Now we come to the residential status of every other person. That is, we can say here that the Income Tax Act 1961, it classifies the SSE into different categories. That is, in individual, Hindu undivided family, firms, association of persons, etc., company, and any other person. In any other person, we can include the local authorities, the artificial juridical persons, etc. When determining the residential status, each category has its own specific rules laid down under Section 6 of the Act. So, for the category of every other person, the rules are simpler but equally important in determining the scope of total income taxable in India. Here again, let us understand what is the meaning of every other person. This group includes all entities other than individual HUF firms, AOP, and the companies. That means, as I've already said, they include the local authorities, and local authorities means we can give the example of municipal corporations, panchayat, district boards, etc. They can be included in local authorities. And if we talk about the artificial juridical persons, AGP, the examples that can be quoted here are the statutory bodies, universities, trusts, endowments, deities, or any legal persons who are created by law or otherwise recognized by the law. So, in essence, we can say that any person who is not covered under other specific categories come under any other person. So, I hope with the help of these examples, things are more clear that yes, what comes under any other person. Then next we come to types of residential status. Types of residential status, that is, unlike individuals and HUF, which can have three types of residential status, here they will be resident and ordinarily resident, resident but not ordinarily resident, and non-resident. All other persons, including the authorities and AJPs, they can have only two residential status, like the company. That is, either they are resident in India or they are non-resident in India. They cannot be classified as ordinarily or not ordinarily resident in India. Coming to this was about deciding, means categorizing between the resident and non-resident. Now, we talk about the statutory provisions. Talking about the statutory provisions, it is as per Section 6, Para 4 of the Income Tax Act 1961. We say every other person is said to be resident in India in any previous year if the control and management of its affairs is situated wholly or partly in India during that year. Otherwise, such a person shall be treated as a non-resident. Meaning of control and management here is the term control and management refers to the power to make any decision regarding the conduct, administration, and policy matters of the entity. It does not refer to routine day-to-day operations but to strategic and policy level control. For example, we can say that if the head office of or policy making body of a local authority or trust, it is located in India, it means its control and management is in India. Conversely, if all strategic decisions are made outside India, then that means that the control and its management are wholly outside India. So let us just conclude that there are some important points that must be kept in mind while taking your decision. That is, first, there is a single status for all income sources. That is, an SSE including every other person, cannot have different residential status for different sources of income in the same assessment year. In the same so if a person is resident for one source of income, he will be considered resident for all. So the basic decision that you have to take is whether the person is resident or not resident. Then for all sources of income, that status will be maintained for every. Maybe we can say that if suppose if a local authority controls and its control and management is partly in India, it will be a resident for the entire year, even if its parts of its income arises outside India. So here the phrase wholly or partly in India is also important, which implies that even the partial control of affairs in India is sufficient to make the entity resident. For example, if the artificial juridical person AJP has its main administrative office in India, but part of its operations are abroad, it will be still called enjoy the status of resident in India. Then there is no difference between or distinction between the ordinarily and not ordinarily in this case. As already said, it applies that maybe it applies only and only to individual and HUF. Apart from that, there are no, no distinction on any other head. They are simply either resident or they are not resident. Some of the maybe let me share some example for your better understanding. For example, there is a local authority in India, suppose Delhi Municipal Corporation. It operates entirely in India. Its control and management are wholly in India. All the employees are also Indian resident, and therefore the residential status will be decided as a resident in India. Similarly, suppose trust control from India and abroad. Suppose an international trust has its main of administrative office in London, but its a trustee is meet and make major decisions in India. That means control and management are partly situated in India. Therefore, here the decision will be that the residential status is Indian resident, that this trust is an Indian resident. Let me go with, suppose there is an artificial juridical person who is controlled from abroad. For example, maybe a foreign charitable foundation. It operates a small branch in India, but all its decisions and management are carried out from the US headquarters. So control and management are wholly outside India. So here the decision will be that the residential status is non-resident. So here I think this is very important from the point of view to determine the tax liability of the entities who are not covered elsewhere, and it ensures a very uniform taxation. There is no difference statutes for different income sources. They are uniformly categorized either resident or non-resident, and accordingly all the sources are calculated under this head. Then it helps identify the foreign controlled entities who are operating from India. So maybe we can say, to conclude this part, that is any other person, we can say a local authority, or artificial juridical person is resident in India if its control and management, that is decision making authority, is wholly or partly situated in India. If the control and management are entirely outside India, then it will be a non-resident. There is no concept of ordinarily resident for such persons, and their residential status applies uniformly across all income sources for that year. So this was about the residential status of any other person. This is an example. Maybe we can go through to understand things better. Though we have been discussing examples here and there, still let us come to a bit more technical part. That is, it says, determine the residential status in the following cases for the assessment year 2024-25. The first point says the control and management of the The control and management of a HUF is situated in India. The manager of the HUF visited England with his wife from 1st August to 2022 to 30th of June 2023. Earlier to that, he was always in India. Now, here we find that uh, it is an HUF. Okay, so the control and management of HUF is situated in India. So first of all, it is a resident, because this is the case of HUF. HUF can be a resident or non-resident. If it is a resident, then whether it is an ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. So from this point, let us decide. That is the control and management of the HUF. It is situated in India, so it is a resident. Status is residential. It is a resident. Okay. Now, whether it is an ordinarily or not ordinarily. So, when calculating the dates, when he visited England. Between 14th of August 2022, he is visiting that country, that is, sorry. The dates are 14th August 2022 to 30th June 23. Okay, so that means let us calculate the number of days here. So maybe it is resident, but further the karta satisfies, whether he satisfies the both of the conditions of category B, that is the additional condition. So when we talk about this, then he is a resident in at least 2 out of the 10 previous years prior to the relevant previous year. Yes, he does that, because this is 14th of August to June. So let us calculate that it is 14 days of August. Then after that, September, October, November, December, January, Feb, March, April, May, and June. So that means 10 months. 10 months means 10 months into 30, 300 something days. So the two conditions is that whether he is for 2 years in India out of the 10 previous year. So yes, because he is going out only for 315 days something. And the second condition is that he was in India for 730 days or more in the 7 preceding years. So I think he fulfills both the additional conditions. He is there for 2 years also, and out of 10, and he is also for more than 730 days for this. Because this. Uh, 2022, 14th August 2022, that is, if we take it if in the year of 2022, that begins from March, April, 1st April 2022 to 31st of March. Out of this, he stays here for till this number of days, and then 23, 24, that is from 1st April to 30th of June. April, May, June, for 3 months he stays in this year. For 3 months he stayed outside, and for this he stayed for, if we calculate, September, October, November, December, January, Feb, and March, that is 6, 7, 7 months and 14 days. So obviously he fulfills the 2 additional conditions that are there. Then coming to the second example, so conclusion for the first is that he is a resident in India, and also he is an ordinarily resident in India, this HUF, because the karta fulfills both the additional conditions. Then second, a company whose registered office is in America has a place of its effective management in the previous year in India. That is, place POEM is was in India in the previous year. It will be a resident in India as its place of effective management in the previous year was in India. Okay, so we because this is the assessment year is 2024. Previously, it is stated that it was in India, so it is a resident. The status is residential resident. Then third is in a partnership firm there are three partners, namely A, B, and C. A and B reside in India while C lives in Germany. The firm is fully controlled by C. During the previous year, Mr. C stayed for 6 months in India. Now, a partnership firm, if we talk about it, it is said to be the resident in India if the control and management of its affair is partly situated in India. So, it will be a resident in India if it is partly situated, and in this case, since A and B are residing in India and they are working from here, so it will be the status will be the resident. Status will be resident in India. Then next is VIP. A VIP club is in India whose director, Mr. X, belongs to China. The club is controlled fully by Mr. X in the previous year, and Mr. X did not come for even a single day to India. Obviously, we will say that this club is a non-resident because no part of control or management was in India in the previous year. So I hope the things are more clear to you. Uh, then we come to talk about maybe the scope of total income on the basis of the resident. Here it is, we have examined the rules determining the residential status of SSE as given in section 5 of the Income Tax Act. As stated earlier, the scope of the total income of the SSE depends on his residential status in the previous year. In this section, we will discuss about the scope of total income for the different categories of SSE. That is, the categories are the residents and ordinary residents, section 5, sub para 1, non-ordinary resident, section 5, para 1 again, and non-resident, section 5, para 2. So in this we will understand the scope of total income on the basis of resident income. So we discussed this much in this session. We'll continue on the same issue, that is the scope of total income, in the next session too.